Hi everyone, I'm Helen from Susan's family. Today I'll show you the Chinese aesthetics series, the Spring Vine Vest. For this electronic tutorial, you can search for susud.com on the website and check it out. This vest is divided into several parts: back piece, left front piece, right front piece, connection, front band, bottom edge, cuff edge, decorations and buttons. The terms left and right refer to the actual left and right sides when worn. First, crochet the front and back pieces separately. After completion, connect the shoulder areas and corresponding body sections. Then, pick up stitches from the hem to crochet the bottom edge. Next, pick up stitches from the bottom edge and the edges of the front and back pieces to crochet the front band. After that, pick up stitches from the sleeve openings to crochet the cuffs. Following this, make and attach the decorations. Finally, sew on the buttons. The vest comes in two sizes, size S and size L. The making method is the same, only the number of stitches and row counts at some positions are slightly different. Below, I will demonstrate and explain using the size S as an example. You can learn the differences in size L first, then refer to the pattern to start crocheting. Let's start by crocheting the right front piece. Start with a chain stitch, then crochet upwards from the starting point. After completing, pick up the stitches and crochet towards the other side. During this part, some positions need to increase stitches, and some positions need to decrease stitches. For convenience in explanation, according to the crochet sequence, I call the pattern area, that is crocheted after casting on, as section 1. The area with single crochets behind is section 2. And the other side, where stitches are picked up and crocheted, is section 3. Let's start by crocheting section 1. Color changes are required during crocheting here. There are quite a few stitch techniques used, and the charts will be marked accordingly. I won't go into specific examples one by one. Next, please watch as I demonstrate the specific crochet method. For convenience in watching, I will use cotton yarn for the demonstration from now on. The colors are random. For specific yarn, color schemes, and hook sizes, you can refer to the detail page of our product and the paper instructions. Let's start by casting on. Begin with a foundation chain. Then crochet the corresponding number of chain stitches. For specifics, please refer to the chart. My sample stitch count is random. After completing the cast on, start crocheting the first row. Start by making one chain stitch as your beginning chain. Then pick up the second chain stitch position from right to left. Note that the loop on the hook does not count. Then pick the outermost strand of the chain braid and work one single crochet. Continue onward. Pick up the top one strand on the left side of the chain braid and work two single crochets evenly. Then make one chain stitch as a space. Skip one chain stitch position below. Then work 5 single crochets evenly. Chain 1 for spacing. Skip one stitch. Continue to refer to the chart as you work, crocheting the corresponding single crochets and chains. Pay attention, skip one stitch after completing each chain stitch. Finish this single crochet, then make 2 chain stitches below. There is one remaining chain stitch at the starting point. Pick up one strand of this chain stitch. To work one slip stitch, tighten slightly. The first row is completed. For the second row, you need to change colors. This color won't be used for the next few rows, so break the yarn. First, secure with one chain stitch. Leave a little yarn tail. Break the yarn. Pull tight. Hide the yarn tail on the wrong side of the fabric. The side with neat single crochet textures is the right side of the fabric. Meanwhile, the starting yarn tail is located on the left side of the fabric. You can also hide all the yarn tails together later. And hide a few extra stitches. The starting yarn tail can be hidden in the same way. Continue crocheting the second row. Work on the right side of the previous row. Locate the position of the first stitch. Pick up the single crochet stitch. Insert the hook. Pick up the corresponding color. Make a slip knot with the yarn. Place it onto the crochet hook. Pull through. Adjust slightly. Join yarn is done. Then make 4 chain stitches to start. Pick up the whole of 1 chain stitch on the left side below, and crochet a TR2 bobble. First, work an incomplete treble crochet. Wrap the yarn around the hook twice. Insert the hook. Yarn over and hook out. Then yarn over and draw through the first 2 loops. Repeat this 2 times. 1, 2. Now there are 2 loops remaining on the hook. This is an incomplete treble crochet. Crochet another incomplete treble crochet in the same position. Finally, yarn over, and pull through all 3 loops on the hook. This is the TR2 bobble done. Then work 2 chain stitches as an interval. In the same position, crochet 1 TR2 bobble. First, work 2 incomplete treble crochets. Then yarn over and draw through all loops on the hook in one go. This completes the TR2 bobble. Continue with 2 chain stitches as an interval. Work another TR2 bobble in the same position. I consider the stitch worked in this space as a puff stitch pattern. We will pick 1 chain stitch hole separately below, and crochet the puff stitch pattern, which means making 3 TR2 bobble in one position. Work 2 chain stitches between the puff stitches. Then continue crocheting following this method. At the last edge's hole position, pick the hole and crochet 2 T or 2 bobble, with 2 chain stitches in between. After completing, continue with 1 treble crochet in the same position. Start by crocheting an incomplete treble crochet. Finally, yarn over and draw through the 2 loops on hook. This completes the treble crochet. At this point, the second row is complete. Similarly, you need to change colors for the next row. You don't need this color for now. Fasten off the yarn. Hide the yarn tail on the wrong side. Next, crochet the third row. Join yarn at one starting end of the previous row. Locate the chain 4 position from the start of the previous row. On the 4th chain, pick up the 2 strands of the chain and insert the hook. Then join the yarn. After completing, make 2 chains as the turning chain. Work down and pick the chain spaces of the puff stitch pattern. Crochet 3 double crochets in each chain space until you reach the last chain space. You can weave in the yarn tail for joining while crocheting. Finish crocheting the last hole position. Pick up the stitches of the treble crochet along the edge and work 3 double crochets into one position. At this point, the third row is completed. Fasten off and weave in the ends. Continue to the 4th row from the double crochet position of the previous row. Pick up the stitch and join the yarn. Then chain 1 as the turning chain. Work 1 single crochet in the same position correspondingly. Crochet 1 chain as an interval. Skip 1 stitch below. Work 1 single crochet. And chain 1 as an interval. Continue alternating 1 single crochet and 1 chain stitch. After finishing the chain, skip 1 stitch below. Complete this single crochet. 1 stitch remaining. Continue with 1 single crochet. At this point, the 4th row is completed. Fasten off and weave in the ends. For rows 5 and 6, join the yarn at the starting side of the previous row. Then pick up the corresponding position and work the corresponding stitches. All these stitch techniques have been demonstrated before. Just refer to the chart for reference, and complete these 2 rows. Remember to fasten off and weave in ends after finishing each row. After completion, start row 7. Join the yarn on the single crochet at the beginning of the previous row. Then make 1 chain as your beginning chain. Correspondingly make 1 single crochet. Continue working according to the chart until there is 1 chain space left at the end. Pay attention, the number of chain stitches changes at the end. Don't make a mistake here. When you reach the corresponding position, pick up the adjacent single crochet below. To work 1 slip stitch. No need to pull tight here. The pattern indicates this with an oval-shaped dot. There will be 1 space and 2 single crochets left at the back. No crocheting needed here. Row 7 is now complete. Fasten off and weave in ends. Next, work on row 8. Join yarn at the starting single crochet of the previous row. Then make 4 chain stitches as a beginning chain. Pick the chain space on the left side. To work 1 double crochet. Chain 1 as an interval. Pick the same chain space below and the left chain space. And work a DC2 tog. Insert hook into each of the 2 spaces and work an incomplete double crochet in each. Yarn over. Insert the hook. Yarn over and draw through. Then yarn over and draw through the first 2 loops. This an incomplete double crochet. Work another incomplete double crochet in the adjacent stitch. Finally, yarn over. Draw through all loops on the hook once. Complete the DC2 tog. Continue with 1 chain stitch as an interval. Pick the space below the decrease and the left space. And work another DC2 tog. From here on, work DC2 tog into the spaces, with 1 chain stitch between each decrease. The beginning and ending of these 2 adjacent decreases are in the same hole. Keep crocheting down until you reach just before the position of the DC2 tog on the chart. You've now reached the corresponding position. Pick these 2 spaces and work a HDC2 tog. Start with an incomplete half double crochet. Yarn over. Insert the hook. Yarn over and draw through. This is the incomplete half double crochet. Continue by picking the space on the left, and working another incomplete half double crochet. Finally, yarn over, draw through all loops on the hook once. Complete the HDC2 tog. Work 1 chain stitch for the interval. Pick the same space below. And work 1 single crochet. Pick the next adjacent space to work 1 single crochet, and 1 chain. Then pick the next space and work 1 loose slip stitch. This completes row 8. Break the yarn and weave in the end. Next, work row 9, in the 4th chain stitch, from the start of the previous row. Pick up 2 strands to join the yarn. Then crochet according to the pattern chart, until just before the half double crochet position. When you reach the corresponding position, pick the adjacent decrease stitch below, and work 1 half double crochet. Then pick the next space, and work 1 single crochet. For the adjacent decrease stitch, crochet without tightening the slip stitch. This completes row 9 at this point, since the same color will be used again for row 11. To reduce the number of times you break yarn, we'll keep the yarn tail here. At the same time, adjust the yarn a bit. After completing, place the yarn tail back in its original position. Move on to crochet row 10. On the 3 starting chain stitches from the previous row, pick up 2 strands of the 3rd chain to join the yarn. Then make 3 chain stitches as the starting chains. Skip 1 double crochet stitch below, slip into the next stitch and make 1 double crochet. Next, work 2 chain stitches for the interval. Then pick the same insertion point of the double crochet and the 3rd stitch on the left side to work a DC2 tog. Follow with 2 chain stitches for the interval. Work according to the chart all the way down, and complete this row. For the last stitch, make a slip stitch without tightening it too much. You won't need this color for the next part. Just fasten off and weave in the yarn tail. Now row 10 is completed. Move on to row 11. Use the yarn from row 9 to continue crocheting. Start from the end where the yarn tail is. First, turn over the fabric. Place the working yarn on the right side. Then, insert the hook into the 3rd chain space from the edge of the previous row, and join the yarn. Pull the yarn through. Yarn over and draw it through. Make sure the pulled yarn is level with the fabric's edge. Chain 1 is the beginning chain. Work 1 single crochet in the corresponding position. Continue crocheting by referring to the chart. For the last DC2 tog, hook it in the position of the 2 strands at the top of the chain stitch, on the edge and in the space. Don't cut the yarn after completing this section. You will need this color later on. It will also be used for the next row. There's no need to secure the yarn tail here. This concludes the explanation of row 11. The crocheting for section 1 has now been fully explained. Next, we'll move on to crochet section 2. All are worked back and forth in one color. No new stitch techniques or methods are used. Please watch as I demonstrate. Here, I will continue using the sample swatch for demonstration. First, work row 1. Start by picking up where the previous yarn tail left off. Make 1 beginning chain to start. Turn over. Pick up 1 stitch from the edge below. And work 1 single crochet. Then separately pick up and crochet the corresponding amount of single crochets. After completing, pick up the adjacent stitch and work a not too tight slip stitch. Here, there are still some stitches left unworked in this section. At this point, row 1 is completed. Continue with row 2. Start with 1 beginning chain. Then turn over. Pick up the single crochet stitch from the edge below. And work 1 not too tight slip stitch. Then pick up the stitches, and work single crochets correspondingly. Finish with 1 stitch on this edge. The method for row 2 is complete. Continue with row 3. The method is the same as row 1. Just the number of stitches is different. Start with 1 beginning chain. Turn over. Work 1 single crochet correspondingly. Crochet the corresponding amount of single crochets downward. Finish with 1 not too tight slip stitch. Leave the remaining stitches unworked. The method for row 3 is complete. Next, work on row 4. The method is the same as row 2, just the number of stitches is different. Start with 1 beginning chain. Turn over. Pick up the single crochet stitches from the edge below. Crochet a not too tight slip stitch. Then work single crochets evenly in sequence. After completing the last stitch, the method for row 4 is finished. Moving forward, follow the methods of the first 2 rows, and continue crocheting downward, until all corresponding row numbers are completed. Once done, fasten off the yarn and weave in the ends. Now the crochet tutorial for section 2 is complete. Next, I'll explain section 3. Here, I'll continue demonstrating with a small sample. Place the starting chain side facing up. Here, crochet from right to left starting from the beginning chain. Note that the right side of row 1 should face you. Then join the yarn in the chain space at the edge. Start with 3 chain stitches as the turning chain. Crochet 1 treble crochet into the same space. Then make 1 chain stitch for spacing. Continue by crocheting a DC2 bobble in the same position. Work separately into the chain spaces on this side, which are the stitch in positions of the previous puff stitch pattern. Correspondingly crochet the puff stitch pattern, continuing until the position of the last pattern. Finish with the last puff stitch pattern. Then move down to the starting single crochet position. Pick up the insertion point for the single crochet and crochet 1 treble crochet. Then fasten off and weave in the ends. At this point, row 1 is completed. For rows 2 to 7, join the yarn at the corresponding positions on this side. Then crochet from right to left. When joining the yarn, if you encounter for the beginning chain, insert the hook under the top 2 strands of the chain. For other positions, either pick up the stitch or the chain space. For rows 8, 10, 11 are crocheted in the same color. Do not break the yarn after completing row 8. Secure the yarn tails and leave them for later use. For row 9, join the yarn at this end. Then crochet normally from right to left. After completion, fasten off the yarn. Next, crochet row 10. Place the yarn tail on the right hand side, then hang the yarn properly. Insert the hook into the first stitch on the edge. Yarn over and draw the yarn through. Start with 3 chain stitches as the turning chain. Continue crocheting behind, all the way until right before the position of double crochet and treble crochet stitches together. When you reach the corresponding position, pick up the stitch directly below in the same position. Work an incomplete double crochet. Then pick the position of the adjacent double crochet on the left side, and work an incomplete treble crochet. Finally, yarn over and draw through all loops on the hook. This completes the TRDC tog. For the remaining rows, no new stitches or techniques are used. Please refer to the chart and finish the remaining crocheting. Then fasten off the yarn and weave in the ends. This concludes the explanation of section 3. Up to this point, the crocheting for the right front piece has been fully explained. Next, we will explain the left front piece. The crochet method is identical to that of the right front piece. However, the colors and sections are symmetrical opposites. Start with a foundation chain again, then work upwards on the corresponding section. After completing, pick up the stitches and crochet downward on the corresponding section. The stitch techniques and methods used here have all been demonstrated before. Please refer to the chart and finish crocheting the left front piece. This concludes the explanation of the left front piece. Next, we will explain the back piece. The method is similar to that of the front piece. Here, the starting chain is located at the center. Begin with a foundation chain and work towards one side first. Then pick up the stitch and crochet towards the other side. The stitch techniques and patterns after casting on here are slightly different from those of the front piece. However, the stitch techniques and methods used have all been demonstrated before. During the crocheting process, when you encounter the next row, or a row with one row in between, and need to use the corresponding color, you can choose not to cut the yarn. When there is one row in between, secure the yarn tail back to its original position. When there are two or more rows in between, it's recommended to join a new yarn and continue crocheting. Next, you can refer to the pattern chart to complete the back piece. That concludes the explanation of the back piece. Now let's talk about joining. Here you need to join the shoulders of the front and back pieces, as well as the narrowest part of the fabric piece, which is the body position. When joining, work on the wrong side of the fabric. Making sure that the right sides of the fabric are aligned with each other. Then align the positions where the connection will be made. For the shoulders, use a crochet hook to work single crochets and chain stitches for joining. Just insert the hook into roughly corresponding stitches or holes on the edge. I'll demonstrate the method of joining. Here, I'll use this sample swatch for demonstration. First, join the yarn at one end of the edge. Insert the hook into the hole that roughly matches. Then make one chain as your beginning chain. Next, work one single crochet in the same position. Then work one chain for the interval. Next, pick up a position that roughly matches. You can insert the hook into the edge hole, or between two strands of yarn, and work a single crochet, with one chain stitch as the interval. Continue picking up positions that roughly correspond, and work single crochets, with one chain stitch as the interval. Continue connecting downward, following this method. And complete the single crochets along this end edge. Break the yarn. And hide the yarn tail inside the fabric. This completes the connection of one shoulder. Flip to the right side to check the effect. Connect the other shoulder in the same way. Please complete it on your own. That's it for the explanation of the shoulders connection at this point. Next, we'll cover the body connection. It will all be connected using single crochets. Pick the corresponding stitches in the matching area, or insert the hook into a chain space. All connections here are done on the wrong side. When connecting, make sure the right sides of the fabric face each other. Connect by picking up the corresponding positions on the wrong side. I'll demonstrate the method for connection. Here, I'll use this small sample for demonstration. Attach the yarn at one edge. Make one beginning chain to start. Pick up and knit into roughly corresponding positions, working single crochets correspondingly. You can hide the yarn tail as you crochet. After finishing one end of the edge, fasten off the yarn. Hide the yarn tail on the wrong side of the fabric. That's it for the explanation of the body connection. And that covers all the connection parts. Next, we'll crochet the bottom edge. Crochet back and forth along the hem edges of the front and back pieces. All stitches are single crochets. The method is simple. Here, I'll explain using a finished product. Start crocheting on the right side of the fabric for the first row. Begin from the edge of the left front piece and work downwards to the edge of the right front piece. When you encounter an edge with double crochets or 3 chain stitches, work 2 single crochets in that row. When you encounter an edge with single crochets, or turning chains for single crochet, work 1 single crochet in that row. When you encounter treble crochets or 4 chain stitches, work 3 single crochets in that row. This is the pattern for crocheting. In practice, check as you crochet. After finishing, the fabric should lay flat. If it doesn't lay flat, adjust the number of stitches based on the actual situation. Then work single crochets back and forth for the following rows. After completion, fasten off the yarn and weave in the ends. This is the method for crocheting the bottom edge. Just complete it as instructed. That concludes the explanation of the bottom edge. Next, we'll move on to the front band. Crochet along the edges of the bottom edge and the front and back pieces. Begin on the right side of the fabric. Attach yarn at the bottom edge of the right front piece. Then work 1 single crochet into each stitch across the bottom edge. In the area of the front piece, where you're crocheting single crochets, pick up stitches and work single crochets correspondingly. When you encounter each row's side, if it's a short stitch at the edge, work 1 short stitch correspondingly. If it's a stitch, pick up the stitch and work 1 short stitch accordingly. When you encounter a chain space, work 2 short stitches correspondingly. Here, for a 1 stitch chain space, you work 1 single crochet. When you encounter a 2 stitch space, or a larger hole, you can work 2 single crochets. Similarly, there are no strict requirements for the exact insertion point and number of stitches, as long as the fabric is flat and looks nice when completed. For the back piece area and the left front area, work the corresponding single crochets using the same method. After completing the first row, you need to change colors, so fasten off the yarn and weave in the ends. For the second row, join the yarn at the first stitch of the previous row, then crochet back and forth for a few rows of single crochets. At the corresponding position of section 3 on the right front piece, you need to leave space for the buttonholes. Here, I will demonstrate the method for making buttonholes. Here, I'm demonstrating with a small swatch. First crochet up to the position before the first buttonhole, then work 3 chain stitches. Skip 3 single crochets. Pick up from behind, and continue working single crochets in sequence. This way, 1 buttonhole is created. For other buttonhole positions, follow the same method to crochet. When you encounter the next row, and reach the buttonhole position. Pick the large space of the chain stitch, and crochet the corresponding single crochets. In some rows afterward, you'll also need to change colors. The method has been demonstrated before. Just refer to the chart directly, and crochet the front band until it's completed. That concludes the explanation of the front band. Moving on to the cuff edge. Crochet back and forth in rounds along the cuff position. All in single crochet, just need to connect the beginning and ending, when crocheting in rounds. For the first round, follow the method used in the first row of the front band. Attach the yarn from the position where the underarm connection begins. Then separately pick up the side edge. Chain spaces or corresponding stitches of each row, and crochet the corresponding single crochets. Similarly, after completing it, the fabric should lay flat and look neat. You can adjust the number of stitches based on the actual situation. At the end, you'll need to crochet a slip stitch to join. I'll demonstrate the method for the ending of the first round next. Here, I'll demonstrate using a sample swatch. After crocheting the last stitch, on the stitch of the first single crochet, join with a slip stitch. Slightly tighten. For the next round, you need to change colors, then fasten off the yarn. Next, attach the yarn at the first stitch of the previous round. Then crochet single crochets evenly from right to left. After completing it, join with a slip stitch on the first stitch. Tighten. No color change later. The second round is complete. Continue with the third round. Start with one chain as your beginning chain, then turn over the fabric. Pick up the stitches on the left side below. Work single crochets evenly. Note that the last stitch is left unworked, which is the position of the first stitch in the previous round. After completing it, join with a slip stitch to the first stitch. Pull tight. The third round is completed. Move on to the fourth round. Start with one chain as your beginning chain. Turn over. Work single crochets into each stitch in sequence below. Similarly, leave the last stitch unworked. After completing it, join with a slip stitch. Pull tight. Continue crocheting following the method of the first two rounds. Note that at the end of each round, you need to skip one stitch and leave it unworked. At the same time, change colors when crocheting the last round. When changing colors, join the yarn in the first stitch of the previous round. Then make a beginning chain. After completing it, turn the fabric over. Here, for the last round, crochet from right to left on the right side. Please finish the remaining part. Now the explanation of crocheting the cuff edge is complete. Next, we'll make the decorations, which consist of small flowers, leaves, and flower branches. First, embroider the flower branches and leaves. After completing them, crochet the small flowers and then attach them. First, embroider the flower branch. Using the outline stitch method. Here, use an entire strand of the corresponding yarn for embroidery. The position of the flower branches is on the front piece. In the area that is entirely worked in single crochet, the length and shape of the flower branches here are not fixed. You can refer to the finished product effect, or adjust according to your preference. Before embroidering, you can first use a water-soluble pen to draw the outline of the flower branch in the corresponding area. Then just follow the outline to sew. If you make a mistake halfway through, you can wipe it off with a wet tissue. Next, I'll provide a method for embroidering the flower branch for your reference. The video mainly demonstrates the embroidery technique. In practice, you should use a whole thread for embroidering, or you can also choose the embroidery method according to your preference. You can learn first, and then operate based on the actual situation later. Please watch the demonstration. Thread the yarn needle. Tie a knot at one end of the thread. I've already prepared it here. Come out on the right side. Follow the visible stitches. Insert the needle a short distance away. And come up a bit back. Continue and insert the needle a short distance away again. Come up a bit back again. Mindful that the thread should always be above the needle. This is the outline stitch method. Continue to embroider the rest of the marked lines. Now, the explanation for embroidering the flower branches is complete. Next, we will talk about how to embroider the leaves. Use a whole thread for embroidering the leaves as well. Distribute around the flower branches. You can also use a water-soluble pen before embroidering. Draw line segments at the corresponding positions. A leaf is about 1.52 centimeters in length. The position and size of the leaves can refer to the finished product, or adjust according to your preference. We'll provide a way to embroider the leaves for your reference. You can learn it first, then operate according to the actual situation later. Please watch the demonstration. Insert the needle a little lower. Then pull out the needle from the side of the vertex. Insert the needle a little lower again. Pull out the needle from the other side of the vertex. The points embroidered on both sides are symmetrical. Follow this method and embroider along this line to finish the remaining part. Once completed, hide the yarn tails. Cut the yarn. That concludes the demonstration of how to embroider leaves. Next, I will explain how to make small flowers. You will need a crochet hook for this. I will demonstrate the method. First, pick up the corresponding yarn. Then start with an adjustable magic ring. After that, make one chain as your beginning chain. Next, insert your hook into the large space, and work one single crochet. Continue by picking up the large spaces, and working 9 more single crochets. Including the first stitch, that makes a total of 10 single crochets. You can check the stitch count if needed. After completing, close the ring. Then pick the first single crochet's V-shaped loop, which is the horizontal braid on the left side. If you're unsure, count the stitches from back to front. Work one slip stitch. Pull tight. For the next round, change colors. Break the yarn. At this point, the first round is complete. Now move on to the second round. Join the yarn in any single crochet from the previous round. For convenience in weaving in the ends, I'll join the yarn at the first stitch position. Then make one chain as your beginning chain. Pick up the adjacent single crochet stitches, and work 5 double crochets. The yarn tail can be hidden while you work. Then pick up the next stitch and work a slip stitch not too tight. The stitch might be hidden here. When crocheting, pull it open to check. Continue picking up the adjacent stitch, and crochet 5 double crochets. For the next stitch, work a slip stitch without tightening. Alternate crocheting 5 stitches of double crochet, and slip stitch not too tight. Complete the last 5 stitches of double crochet from the starting position of the beginning chain. Pick up 2 strands and work a slip stitch join. Here you cannot pull too tight, then cut the yarn. Leave about 15 centimeters of yarn here for sewing. Now one small flower is completed. Follow the same method to crochet the corresponding number of small flowers. After completion, proceed with assembly. Refer to the finished product or sew according to your preference in the right position. Here I'll demonstrate the sewing technique using a sample. The position is up to you. Thread the reserved yarn into a sewing needle. Then place the flower with the right side facing up, which is the side where the stitch texture is neat. If there are any leftover yarn tails, place them on the wrong side. Pick the approximate corresponding position of round 2 of the small flower for sewing together. There's no specific requirement for the sewing method, just make sure it's secure. After completing, weave the yarn tail to the wrong side. Tie a few knots with the fabric to secure it. Weave the tail end into the fabric. You can weave in a few more stitches if you'd like. This completes attaching one small flower. Attach the remaining small flowers using the same method, placing them in the appropriate positions. This concludes the decorations section. Finally, sew on the buttons. Place the front band of the right front piece over the front band of the left front piece. Then, at the positions corresponding to the buttonholes, sew on the buttons separately. There's no specific requirement for the sewing method of the buttons, as long as they're securely fastened. Please complete this step. That's it for the buttons. Up to this point, the making of the entire vest has been fully explained. If you have any questions during the process, don't hesitate to reach us via our website. Susan's Family, supporting your handwork experience, sharing the joy of life. Thanks for watching. See you in the next episode.